Hello, Rimworldians, and welcome to Harriet's 25th chapter. A brief disclaimer, I recorded 2 hours of footage for episode 25 on a full hard drive, so the footage was lost. Thankfully, there were only 2 dangerous events worth mentioning, and the rest of the time was spent improving the base. Had Harriet died in a dramatic final episode and I lost that chapter of all recordings, I would have found the nearest bridge to jump off of. Thankfully, I live to edit another day. So allow me to recap what you missed as we re-enter the Verbium rainforest on the Rimworld's equator. The first thing that was improved was the crops. The initial sandbag line was extended out 2 tiles to accommodate more growth for the colony's increased food consumption. The security hall was floored for better visibility, cleanliness, and movement. A smelter and machining table were assembled in the storage compartment whereby the dozens of mechanoids and primitive weapons were processed into steel and plasteel. The North Hall, the last original section of the ruin that Harriet used as a shelter in her early days in this tropical wasteland, was salvaged to reveal fertile soil under the foundation. The crematorium was rebuilt near the kill box to minimize travel for corpse disposal. The power usage of the machining table and smelter began flickering the lights of the colony, signaling the necessity for another watermill. The outer wall was extended across the river for multiple reasons. Firstly, to use the solid ground for stone walls as opposed to building lightwood walls on flimsy bridges. Secondly, to make full use of this section of river by acquiring safe access to the opposite bank. The soil around the existing watermills was then used to expand the rice fields. The defensive redundancy of the sandbag line was being extended to the river's edge, and research on flak armor was completed. Mushinto was also successfully recruited and was handed the name Cryan after one of my investors, which Cryan, thanks a bunch, dude. I can never thank you all enough for the support. He is currently invisible because he was sent on a quest to assist a neighboring settlement with food harvesting in exchange for goodwill. Lastly, on improvements, the 3 ambrosia patches were harvested with a yield of roughly 100 units, sold for a healthy profit, and traded for a stack of high-explosive shells for the mortar which had been depleted in a previous episode against a psychic mech ship attack. As for events, there were 2 notable incidents. There was an intense psychic drone that impacted the males of the colony with a -30 mood debuff. It caused 3 mental breaks, which had me seriously concerned since that was a lot of fighters to be incapacitated should a raid arrive, but it ended without further incident. Eventually there was a massive stampede of 20 to 30 Scaria-maddened ibex that was efficiently massacred in the kill box. Something like half a dozen corpses remained edible and were brought to the freezer for butchering and cooking. Oh, and the volcanic winter finally ended. And so we return to Harriet on the 1st of Juggist, year 5503, as our corn crops have reached maturity. In the earliest hours of the following day, 2 watermills are installed for the ever-increasing electrical requirements of the base as a rat self-tames. At long last, by specific request, this fellow will be named Bad after Bad at Games. Thanks for being a part of all this, bud. Soon after, the wiring is extended under walls and sandbags around the base in both directions. This is done to avoid short circuits, lighting the fields on fire, and to hide the beauty debuff under existing structures. It is wired in a loop around the base so that if either side should blow, power can be rerouted without interrupting the use of appliances. Randomly, Exec and Crazy get into a scuffle. Exec has apparently insulted Crazy's brother's culinary skills. After a few civilized bites to the torso and arm, they head to the infirmary. As it so happens, Beaks has been trying to lay some romantic moves on Exec by poking fun at her self-control. A friendly shuttle lands briefly at the southern entrance, delivering Cryan back home from his assisting quest with the Empire of God. At night, while Exec smelts metal slag into raw steel, Harriet checks in on Dark. He is almost over the death of his spouse. Soon he should be able to move on with his life. In the near future, there will be newborn elephants, thus more beds are constructed. The base is becoming rather cramped with all these individuals, so a large barn may be designed in the future. As the third of the month begins, Lyons installs the last of the waterproof conduits to link the North Bank water mills to the power grid. At 4 hours, Harriet looks at the flak vest designs and makes note of the material requirements of 30 cloth, 60 steel, and 1 component. The cloth was recently used up for the poker table and clothes to replace tattered apparel, so more will be grown. As the sun rises over our expanding salon, and Pixie's dynasty considers what their next R&D should be, a cool breeze signals the end of the heat wave. After hours of deliberation, it is agreed that automated defenses should be built. The colonists are starting to stack quite a list of scars and dismemberment, so any combat they can pass on would be helpful to preserve their health and sanity. A narrow service bridge is extended between the water mills in order to provide dry access to the North Bank for the colonists. As Crunchy begins work on this walkway, Slag, Cryan, Crazy, and Dark are harvesting rice crops, which will then be resown with cotton while Wheel collects the sustenance. Early on the 4th of the month, more marshes are marked and zoned to plan a base extension to the south. There is need for a manufacturing bay where all production can be organized and optimized. This area is installed just below the storage compartment, and 4 new living quarters are planned for future prisoners or recruits. While Crazy chisels out any protruding boulders on the landscape, the rest of the colony collaborates in either chopping the overgrowth, hauling materials, or building the structure. The team effort is inspiring to Harriet when she considers just a couple short years prior, she was alone and starving in this dank ruin, and look at what it's become. At 15 hours, good progress is made not only on the expansion but also tech. The first of 3 breakthroughs needed for automated defenses is concluded by Exec. As mentioned earlier, the colony is investing in protective gear and equipment due to a growing list of debilitating injuries. One such disruption is exemplified in Cryan's food binge in that late afternoon. An old gunshot wound to his left arm is painful. Reconsideration is given to research priorities. Bionics would not only serve to replace damaged limbs, but it would also enhance natural abilities. Additionally, Cryan is a transhumanist, and a little cybernetic upgrade would further improve his mood. Ultimately, they continue pursuing automated defenses to prevent any more injuries such as these from manifesting. During the night, Lyons makes note of 2 steam geysers emanating just south of the developing border. He will convey this observation to Harriet for future consideration. Meanwhile, an exotic goods caravaneer from the northeast Aredo, enters the colony's vicinity from the southwest. That morning, Harriet rouses everyone from their sleep to have a colony breakfast. What she really intended, however, was to test the dining room capacity to see if a larger table would be needed. It appears as though there's more than enough room for everyone, and in the process the crew got to bond over a meal. Soon, everyone is hard at work, and Wheel can trade with his old allies. When all is said and done, he exchanges the caravan's 250 silver, 15 components, 7 Glitterworld meds, and 1 medical skill trainer for his 2 elephant tusks and 5 thrumbo horns. He could sell the 6th, but it is currently the strongest melee weapon in the colony and therefore in Crunchy's possession, since his range skill is non-existent and his ability to bitch slap enemies is brutal. As the finishing touches on the updated outer wall are applied, the seal by the mortar station is deconstructed. At the stroke of midnight leading to the 6th, a Baron from Empire of God is calling for aid. He requests that Harriet's squad counterattack their toxic spewer node to divert their attention. He warns her that they've left 4 aggressive muffalos to guard it, and that other threats may exist. The bottom 2 rewards on offer are tantalizing. Harriet accepts the quest in exchange for the healing serum and chem reactor. The serum can be used to regrow one of the lost body parts or painful injuries sustained by her colonists, and the chem reactor will be a nearly cost-free and constant source of chem fuel, which she will need to build explosives in the near future. The 60 units of gold are just an added bonus. The toxic spewer is located just outside her southern border, about half a day of travel away. A few hours later, as the toxic fallout begins seeping into her home and friends, she organizes her best shooters, bringing Hypergig to tank any threat that may survive their gunfire. Only a little food is brought. They are traveling light, after all. They arrive, hours later, in a rainy thunderstorm. As her squad gets a visual on the machine through the precipitation, the bushes are crushed and torn through by the stampeding muffalos. For the first time since she trained in her use of psychic abilities, Harriet finally uses her stun. The muffalos are all executed, and they prepare to breach the pod. Beaks cautiously deconstructs the door, while the rest of the squad wait with guns ready. The door crumbles and the pod is revealed. No threats appear. While they congratulate each other, Harriet also observes their local area to see if any value can be salvaged from this mission. Obviously, they take whatever they can from the destroyed machine. They also find some metal construct under the canopy to the north that they deconstruct for its steel value. They form up and return home. Meanwhile, back at base, Crunchy is installing the chem reactor earned from the mission's reward. It is powered up, and chem fuel is now in production. As the sun sets that afternoon, Crunchy also goes on an insulting spree, to which Dark responds by insulting Crunchy's sense of duty. Crunchy assaults Dark in a fit and sends him to the infirmary. Meanwhile, much to everyone's relief, the expedition arrives home. And here, at sunrise of Jugus the 7th, we end Chapter 25. On the next episode, Harriet's crew will endeavor to complete the production depot, while they continue research on gun turrets. Once the automated weapons are designed, they will commit all their resources and time to creating a savage kill box. Until then, farewell, my friends. I apologize for the whoopsie with the original episode 25. On the bright side, both recordings were fairly tame, with only one major event of any concern. Hopefully, or dreadfully, Randy may amp things up in the following recording. Time will tell. As always, thank you very much for your attention. Like, sub, ring the bell. I hope you are all safe, healthy, and fulfilled, and I will see you on the next one.